if the audience doesn't show up, what is even the point of being a good performer if you're performing to an empty room? Posters are very important. When you have a live show coming up, this is how most of the people are going to hear about it. So your posters need to pop, attract attention, look professional, create interest, and sell them on the quality of your show, all in printed form and in a limited space. First off, you are not AC/DC. So simply putting your logo or picture or name on a poster and expecting people to show up is silly and egocentric. You are not as big a deal as you think. None of us are. So you have to grab their attention and then sell them on the quality of the show. I found that a great double-edged way to both grab their attention and demonstrate the quality of your show is to use strong, descriptive, short but sweet testimonials from clubs, clients, and media appearances you've made. All of my personal posters have relied strongly on testimonial quotes. And at first I kind of did it accidentally. When I was creating my first posters, I was looking for a way to describe the show, and honestly, I'm not very good at tooting my own horn. I'm not good at bragging up my own show. So I figured, what better way to give an honest description than through somebody else's words? So I went back and looked at some of the letters of recommendation and testimonials I had and started to use that. And I started to use those on my posters. And as it turns out, having someone else describe your show for you is also very powerful in the written form, because we as entertainers could talk till we were blue in the face about what our show is all about and how good we are and how much the audience is going to love it. But what really matters is what other people are saying. That is what people listen to. In fact, you should use testimonials in all of your stuff, from posters to websites to demo videos. A little tangent about getting testimonials. I've had other entertainers how the hell I get so many strong testimonials from clients, and this tactic does work for other people too who have tried it. Here's the secret. Are you ready? You ask. At first, when I started doing shows, I would send a thank you note, and I was so young I would ask for what I called a letter of recommendation, asking if they could write up a few sentences that I could use for future bookings to show people who were interested in hiring me. And that kind of worked for a while, but they all sounded so stilted and formal that they weren't very effective for using as kind of like a short, bam, quote. And then I stumbled on a very effective way to both get honest feedback, which would help me improve my entertainment services, and get strongly worded, descriptive testimonials. So back to the poster. You've got your testimonials. You want to find one of your strongest or most descriptive testimonials and display it prominently. Probably not their entire sentence or the entire testimonial. Just take some of the strongest, most descriptive parts out and use that. Here are some of the types of descriptive testimonials I'm talking about. This is what's on my current poster. You can see we have a big one across there, smaller ones scattered around. And you want that strong testimonial in large print and generally at the top of the poster. This will sort of act like a headline or attention grabber. So it has to be a testimonial that sounds enticing. Do not make the mistake I've made and display your name all huge and the testimonials in tiny and think that the name will get the attention, because nobody gives a shit about us. Making your name huge compared to everything else, that strokes our ego, but that's about all it's good for. Unless you're a household name like Ron White or Chris Angel or Metallica, that's not going to work. You got to get their attention with other people's words and then tell them who you are. So put your short but powerful descriptive testimonial in large print at the top, and then have some smaller print quotes, maybe longer, more detailed quotes further down into your poster. And I recommend below each testimonial crediting it to the company or organization who wrote it, along with their city and state. After they've already read other people's words about you, then you can go a little deeper, maybe a short paragraph describing what you do in a bit more depth, maybe some recognizable logos of past credits or appearances or clients you've had. The keyword is recognizable. Stuff like Comedy Central, Sirius XM, The Bob and Tom Show, any talk show appearances, any gigs you've done for companies that a lot of people have heard of. Also, any awards or competitions you've won. They might not know what those competitions are, but it sounds good on a poster. This is to build credibility for someone who has never heard of you before. Other entertainers aren't going to give a shit about this stuff, but the general public does appreciate it. I'll bet you probably have more impressive past appearances than you think you do. Go back through your records and take a notebook paper along with you and jot down these company names you've worked for and clubs that actually have pretty good reputations. You're probably going to impress yourself with what kind of past appearance list you can come up with. And of course, you're going to want a space on the poster for the details of the upcoming appearance. You want this to be a blank space that can either you can either type in and have printed, or your client can download from your website and fill in their own details if you're working on a time crunch. In that event section, when you've got the date, time, place, and all that, you need to specifically tell them to do something and how to do it. Like visit the bar or call this phone number right now to reserve your tickets. That's called a call to action, and everything you create should have one. You have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this piece? Who is going to look at it, and what do I want them to do? And then you have to tell them to do exactly that. And by the way, while you do want your poster available for download on your website, I am a huge believer in completing the posters yourself as the entertainer or your agent or manager if you have one, and then physically mailing a big stack of posters to your client. It's impressive when they receive this 80-pound package, and maybe it's not that much, but they're impressed when they receive these nice looking posters in the mail. And it also eliminates a lot of the hassle for them because the fewer steps that are in the way of your posters being hung up and doing their job, the better. Like if your customer has to complete the posters themselves and then email that to their local printing company and then go pick them up and pay for them, or if you send them a big stack of blank posters and they have to handwrite all the details in themselves, or if they have to print up their own at home and don't really want to use up $82 worth of ink cartridges, they're going to procrastinate doing all of that, or not do it all, or not hang nearly as many posters as they should, you know? And I would not use your own home printer. I suggest ordering them from your local printing store like Staples or Kinko's or the Ma and Pa copy shop down the street. For some reason they just look better because of how they're produced on professional grade printers. I don't know what it is, but the colors pop and there's a nice shine to them. Plus you're not wasting the time doing the printing, dealing with the jammed printer, running out of ink, all that junk. And not only do I physically mail the printed custom posters to the venue, I also email them directly their custom gig poster in multiple file formats, digital. So they have them on hand if they need to get some more printed on short notice. We got 11 by 17s, 8.5 by 11 versions of that, smaller half-page versions where 2 small versions of the poster fit onto a letter-sized page. They get all that. They get color versions, they get black and white versions, just so they have it on hand. And they have a nice high-resolution, crisp image of their poster to use any way they might need, like to put on Facebook or to send to the local newspaper, or have a beer distributor make a banner out of it. Actually, here's a couple of banners of mine that Budweiser made for live shows at small town bars, using the image of the poster that I was using at the time. It was good for them because it was really easy for Budweiser to throw it together, being kind of pre-made, and it was good for me because I got these giant ass banners to hang in my office. Yeah, you better believe I stole them after the show. Those look cool, man. Not terribly happy with that exact poster design. This is one of the mistakes I made. I made my name too big. I made the testimonials too small. But you live, you learn, and learn from my mistakes. Now, when I email those custom poster images to my client, I also send them a few different file types, like a PNG image, JPEG image, and a PDF set up to print with proper margins. I also include, as I mentioned, both color and black and white, so they have what they need immediately when they need it. And at the very bottom of the poster, below the special event appearance details, if you want them to visit your website, tell them and give them a reason to. My current poster directs people to my website in order to learn free tricks and pranks that you can use to screw with your friends. A comedian could have visit Filthy McNasty's website to watch a hilarious preview video, some type of call to action. The more appealing your offer here, the better it's going to work, but any call to action is better than no call to action. Well, on the topic of posters, QR codes. I see a lot of gig posters, especially bands these days, with QR codes at the bottom. That's where you can scan this goofy little square barcode with your smartphone and it takes you to a web page or whatever. Personally, I would advise against using a QR code. I really don't think anyone actually uses them. You see them everywhere, but I think primarily they're just the result of designers who went to marketing school and think that because it's kind of a new thing, they should put it on all this stuff. I mean, I've even seen them on billboards on the side of the highway. Now, who the hell is going to pull out their phone while they're driving 80 miles an hour to scan that code on the billboard while they're driving? Come on, that's ridiculous. Personally, I think QR code is on its way out. I don't use a QR scanner on my phone. Do you? I don't know anybody that actually does. And I think the space on your poster would be much better utilized than being taken up by this big ugly square that doesn't actually communicate anything at the time. But that's just me. I could be wrong. If you really want one though, I can create one for you if we end up working together on a design project for you. The point of that is you got to use your space wisely. You got to pack a lot of stuff in there, but without making it look too cluttered or too amateurish or too time consuming to read. That's a big one. If what they see is on a flyer is just your headshot and then your bio all written out, it's going to look like too much of a pain in the ass for them to even read, so they're not going to read it. They'll just skip right over it. But at the same time, if it's too sparse, it's not going to get the job done. Like Guns N' Roses can just slap their logo and date, time, place, ticket info on a poster, and that'll work for them. But we do not have the luxury of being so recognizable. So we have to create a poster that grabs their attention, draws them in, so before they even realize it, they've looked over the entire poster all the way down to your call to action. Contact the bar, get your tickets, visit the website, that kind of thing. Creating a poster that has a lot of information in it, but is still attractive and doesn't look too overwhelming to read is a very delicate balance. It's arguably the most time-consuming part of designing a poster. If you have a bunch of logos from past appearances, you got to find a good balance so that whole section looks cohesive, but they have to be large enough and bold enough that they're legible even when the poster is reproduced in a smaller size. Size of poster. Design your poster with its end use in mind. Like, is it only going to be used on an 11 by 17 print, or are people going to need a letter-sized 8.5 by 11-inch version? Do people want matching small handbill flyers, like those half-page things I mentioned? Is the poster image going to be used online? A lot of gigs will use your poster as the main image of a Facebook event invite, for example. Will it always be in color? Or more likely, are people going to photocopy it and make some black and white copies? Is it going to be reproduced as a small newspaper ad? Your poster has to look good and legible and balanced, and above all, communicate effectively in both full color at a large size and in black and white at a much smaller size. And it has to print out properly with the proper margins if they're printing it. It sounds pretty narrow, but I've found that a margin on posters of 0.125 inch is good. It maximizes the usable space on your poster, but it still has a bit of a margin that the printer needs to get their job done. So you have to design your poster with print sizing in mind, right down to the fraction of an inch, right down to the exact pixel dimensions. So if I'm designing an 11 by 17 poster that's going to be printed with a 0.125 inch margin, that means I need to set my canvas to actually be a little bit smaller than 11 by 17. I need it to be 10.75 inches by 16.75 inches. So everything's even, and so your image doesn't get distorted and stretched, and so parts of your poster don't get cropped off during printing. So these are all things you have to consider when you're designing an effective poster. But once you get the initial work done and start getting one designed, this is a poster that you can use for many, many gigs for several years if you want, with only minor tweaks and adjustments. And at the end of this video, I'll let you know how we can work together to design your poster for you so you have a solid professional poster image in multiple file formats, multiple color options, multiple sizes, but more about that later.